Welcome to Thoughts Off the Stem. I'm Justin Barone, your friendly neighborhood pothead, and today we're smoking some Rocket Candy Blunt by Wink. It is 33.4% THC, 33.43% THC, with a total of 0.08% CBD and a 2.29% terpene profile. It's indica dominant. It's pretty fresh. It's tasty. I've had it for a little while. I've had everything I smoke on here. I've had it a little while because I basically, saved up and created a shop in my house. Not that I sell it. I just have that amount, which is okay because it's Canada and having weed is illegal. It's nice. So I wanted to talk about because these last couple weeks, I've been like heavy into like true crime docuseries and like true crime everything lately. I have like my favorite shows. It started with FBI True, PD True. They're both on Prime. They're TV shows basically about cases. You probably know about most of them, but like they detail them from the FBI or the police's side of things. And from there, I got into like true crime murder cases. I call it murder TV. I'm loving murder TV. But as I've been watching these things and as I've been like consuming an abundance of series, like obsessively, I have to ask the question, what the fuck, dude? Because a lot of these like murders and stuff that are on these shows, the how do you not I get like being a psychopath and stuff like that and being like super crazy and whatever. But like how are you not terrified of getting caught or like being terrified and nervous when you're on the stand or in a courtroom knowing that you're probably going to end up getting caught? Because like for me, okay, I look at that. Maybe that's because like I'm a relatively well integrated, healthy, mentally member of society. But obviously, I never think of like killing somebody. I would defend myself if somebody was trying to attack me. But having to kill somebody or killing somebody would be really hard. I couldn't even kill a bird that was injured on a golf course that like really needed to be put down. So let alone trying to kill a human. Now, I often think to myself like, if my kids were attacked or if somebody, broke into the house, like, would I defend it? Yeah, I would. I'd probably have a hard time not defending it, like just standing there. I hope anyway, because you never know until you're in that scenario, right? But I like to think that I can at least defend myself and be able to fight back if somebody were trying to harm me or my family, right? Or people I love. And then I'm watching these things and I'm thinking to myself, like, these killers, for the most part, they just, like, obviously they lie constantly. Like, do they actually believe what it is that they're saying? Like, have they repeated it in their head? Like, okay, I'll give a couple examples. Um, so there was one guy that murdered this girl who tried to get a ride home with him from a bar. I mean, obviously it was a stranger. It was probably a bad move, but she was drunk and alone and she needed a ride. Well, this guy had like cuts and stuff all over his hands from like just absolutely demolishing her. And after the murder the next day, he just goes out fishing with his buddy like it's nothing. And you've got like all these marks and stuff all over your hand, you're big dude. And to me, if that were me, I'd be terrified that somebody would see the marks and start asking me about them, and then in my head and in my body I would feel like crazy nervous. um I try to deflect. I would constantly assume that they think that I did something bad, like I wouldn't be able to just like put it aside and be like, oh, it's just another day, it's fine. I would be constantly worried about the consequences that were to come potentially, right? Whereas these guys just seem to sort of like go on with daily life as if it doesn't matter. I can't get my head around that. Watching these dudes be like, nope, it was just I didn't do it. I wasn't there. Didn't do. No, sure, I definitely drove her home, but like I definitely didn't do anything after that. It was just whatever. Like you in your mind have this memory of complete and utter violence and chaos, and you can sit there with a straight face and potentially no outward showing of nervousness, a complete lie. Like you could just let that out of there. You can just let that out of you and tell the cops, like, dude, I don't know. To me, I'd be terrified. Like, you watch these guys on the stand because they show you like trial footage and stuff, and you see them sitting with their lawyers, and you see them on the stand, and you notice, like, the first thing you notice is they're always just kind of like, unless they're a real psychopath, but like, for the most part, these guys just sit there like complete poker face, you know. And to me, I feel like if I was, you could see it all over. It'd be written all over me, man. You know, I don't know how these guys do it. I really don't, because I would be terrified. When I was a kid, my buddy and I prank call. My buddy and I prank. We're doing prank calls one Saturday afternoon, and we ended up calling the cop. And at the time, it was right when we still had landlines, right? Almost everybody had an answer. Well, you had digital answering machines. So like the phone company was providing a service for, you know, an answering machine within your phone plan. And it was around the time, probably like early on, where call display had just come up. If you're older, you'll know this. If you're a kid, you won't know what I'm talking about. You had a phone that's hung on a wall, and it had a little digital display, and it would tell you the number of the person that called, and if the person had put their was if the person had published their name in the phone book, it would show up above the number, so you knew who was calling, just like on your smartphone, but like on the wall and not in your pocket, you know. And I remember we were calling around, just doing stupid prank calls, like, you know, the whole, is your refrigerator running, or is your refrigerator running? Oh yeah, you better catch it, ha ha ha, and then hanging up. Well, at one point I go to the washroom, and my buddy who's doing this with me, makes just, and we're just dialing random numbers, like, you know, whatever the area code was, and then 7 digits after that. And while I was in while I was in the bathroom, okay, um, he made a phone call. Now, we obviously, it starts off as innocent, and then like it amps up and amps up and amps up until you're finally just like losing it because you're way too into doing it, and you're overexcited, overstimulated, and you're a kid. You don't know what you're doing. And I think we were like 13 or 14. And so he calls and he leaves this like really fucked up message because it was a woman's phone, and he started talking about some outlandish stuff, like how he was gonna, like, how he wanted to fuck her and all this stuff. Like, it was just not, it was crazy, okay? Well, it ends up that like a day or two later, my dad comes home from work, and he corners me just outside of the kitchen, and he goes, "Hey, Just, so you got anything you want to tell me about when you and so and so were hanging out together alone?" I was like, "No, why? We played baseball, went out, played football, rode our bikes. What do you want to know?" He goes, "Well, I got a phone call from a person that told me that maybe you guys made some questionable phone calls to them and left messages." I go, "Oh yeah, that happened." Not thinking anything of it. And then he goes, "Yeah, so here's a problem. She's a cop." I was like, "Fuck, you gotta be kidding me." So like the 10th random phone number that we called ends up being a cop, and that's like the worst, stupidest, most like sexually obsessed like message that we left. Now, granted, I did not leave the message. It was my buddy that did it, and I'm not like, I did some other ones, but I didn't do that one because that one was like, I don't know, it was way offside. It was, you know, when you're a kid and you just keep like egging each other on, and you amp up and you amp up, and you're trying to say the most outlandishly crazy thing that you can say just to get a reaction from people. Well, that's what happened. And it got to the point where we left a message on this cop's phone, and she calls my parents and calls his parents and explains what happened. I'm sure she played the message, which she was going to save and record it. She was going to save and record it as harassment and keep it on file unless we went to her house and apologized to her. So our parents, our dads, load us up into the car and take us over to her house, and we have to stand on her porch and profusely apologize for being idiots. So we do that, but I can remember, okay, how like intense the feeling of guilt and shame and terrification of the situation and being terrified, um, I felt like the entire time after. Like even when we left it, I knew it was like, it's kind of, it's like, it's risky. It's like, oh no, will we get caught? Won't we get caught? But for some reason, I was pretty sure that we were going to get caught. So the whole time after that, I'm like in this constant state of like anxiety and paranoia that someone's gonna, come tell me. So when my dad came and told me what happened and like how he, what she had told him, I felt a little bit relieved because at least with that, then I didn't have to hang on to it. I'm not good at holding on to like lies or, untruth. I'm really bad at it. It eats away at me. It's like the what is it, the beating heart under the floorboard in that story. I forget what it's called right now. But that's how I felt. So when I'm watching these like true crime documentaries, these guys just seem like calm, cool, nonchalant, like they don't really give a shit. And I think to myself, like, how does that happen? Like, you have to be severely emotionally detached from society to be the guy that's like, yeah, whatever. Like, a couple of them, a lot of the times the guys would just deny that they did anything until the cops were like, so we have this as proof and we have that as proof and we have that. And even in those cases, almost all of them would still be like, well, you didn't get the right guy. But like, how do you convince yourself of that? What in your brain gives you that capability? Because I don't get it, dude. I can't do that. I'm terrified. If I do something wrong, like I got into a fight at school in high school once, and I remember I knocked this kid out in the middle of the playground or like, the quad. And as soon as I did, I just turned around and I walked into the school building and I sat down in the principal's office because like I did something wrong. And I know that I did something wrong. And I know that like eventually, like in that case, everybody's going to see it. But I feel like no matter what I do, if it's wrong, if somebody's going to know. It's like getting high. Like they look at you and even if they don't know you, they're like, oh, he's high. And you get that constant paranoid thought of like, they know I'm high. They know I'm high. It's like that, but for, crimes. And that's one of the things that I don't understand about these dudes. Like obviously they have something going on in their brain where most humans would be like, "Oh fuck, I fucked up." They're just like, "Nah, I didn't do that." Like the guy's got chopped up knuckles from, getting like beating this person and he's just like, "Nah, they're not there." he No, those aren't cuts. That's my skin. It's always been like that. Like they'll come up with the most outlandish shit. And then they get to trial and the next thing you know, they're denying the whole thing and coming up with a cockamamie story. Like I saw too, where the guy the guy that killed the person was, I don't think he ever admitted it, but it was like pretty clear and like pretty cut and dry that he did it, and he never said anything until all of a sudden trial comes up, and against all his other statements he starts blaming the person's husband, and just like out of nowhere, and it makes no sense. Like how can you concoct this kind of like this story like that and believe it? Because like in his case, the time that he was murdering her and him trying to blame the husband was wearing a Fitbit, and the Fitbit like perfectly showed that he wasn't moving because it had showed him get up earlier in the night to go to the bathroom and then back to bed and then no movement after that till like the next day. And this guy was trying to say that he he dropped her off at home and the husband came out in a jealous rage and like and killed her. But that wasn't what happened. you know? Like I don't this I would love to learn why someone's brain is like that. Like how hard you have to try to believe that lie because you would have the events actually running in your head. I guess at some point you create different, create it in a different way, but like I can't fathom that because my thought process if I do something wrong is like someone's going to find out, someone's going to find out. So I'm just honest. I knocked that guy out. I went to the principal's office. Principal's like, "Why are you here?" I'm like, "Knock that guy out. Probably gonna have a talk with you now." And yeah, I couldn't do it. I would spill my guts. But then again, I would never be in a situation where I would be murdering somebody. That's fucking crazy, dude. It's not just fascinating to me, man. 84% of the US watches true crime. I'd like to know how much of the world watches true crime. Probably everybody. It's fascinating trying to understand why somebody would stoop to those lengths. Like, I get that, mental illness or something plays a part in it, but I could never think of, like, in a lot of the scenarios, it's, a husband kills a wife, or the wife kills, or a friend kills people, or it's always somebody close to you. But I could never picture myself murdering somebody because they basically did something I didn't like. Like, yeah, it's people just right to the end. And then I'm always bitching about technology, though, right? Like, I'm always saying how, it's kind of a bad influence on society. Well, in this case, it's a good spot because when these people make up these fucking lies about shit and the events that happen, and like trying to create these elaborate stories to try and explain to somebody, hey, this is where I was and this is what I did. I had nothing to do with this. Technology, your car, your cell phone, any electronic thing that you have, video cameras, like home, monitoring systems, you can't go anywhere without ending up on camera. So I guess it that way. But you would think that that would deter murders. It doesn't seem to. If somebody's like ticked off enough and they're in a rage, that's what they're doing, for sure. Okay, I got to talk about this blunt. I'm just saying, I've been watching a lot of murder TV, so that's my take on it. I don't. I. It's baffling to me how somebody could just be like, "Nope, didn't do it," and admit that, or I mean, keep to that, even though all of the evidence ever in the circumstance points directly to you, with no doubt. Like these guys will have like the other person's blood on them or on a part of their clothing or something like that, and they're still like, nah, wasn't there. you know like, I guess in life sometimes that's good to have, but I freak out at the thought of trying to have to, like, you know keep like a Christmas present a secret. Yeah. Anyway, I was going to talk about the blunt. Sorry. So that's the first thing about the blunt. This is, what was it again? Hope you're enjoying the sesh. It's Wink Rocket Candy, and it's a blunt. It's 33.43% THC, 0.08% CBD, and 2.29% terps. Caryophyllene, humulene, salinidine. I'm too high to say this properly. Selenadian. Selenadi. I don't know. It's an S one. That's the S terp one I can't pronounce. Um, but it's a nice blunt. Tastes good. It's a nice relaxing high. It's a turn off your brain high. Although I'm little, like, I guess a little bit head wobbly. That would be bad for murders. I would not be getting, if you caught if you, I'm not gonna tell you how to kill me. What was I doing there? I was just about to say, if you do a certain thing, you can whatever. Man, I'm morbid. But yeah, it's a good blunt. It's not too overwhelming. I'm trying to figure out what it tastes like. I can't really tell. It's smooth though. But it's because the blunt paper is so strong. So I taste blunt paper. What is the blunt like? Does it say? Is it a flavor? Nope. Nope, doesn't say. I don't know. I guess I would equate it to like a mid-range cigar. Like, not quite a Colt, cigarello, but like not quite a cigar either. got a nice feel to it though. It's nice and relaxing, like I said before. Yeah, I would smoke this. This is a good blunt. This is a nighttime blunt though, not daytime. Because like I could have a nap. It's just all of a sudden running over my body. Yeah, that's good. Way to go, Wink. That's a good one. I recommend it. Oh, yeah, it's flavorful. You know what it is? It's a good. You've been out fishing, and you just got home. You got your fish hanging over the sink, and you sit outside, have a beer, relax for a couple minutes before you start cooking the fish. It's that kind of blunt. So that when you're doing up the fish, you're focused. You get quite a bit of focus off this. It'll definitely slow you down though. All right, that's enough of that. But yeah, I gotta say, I'm now sucked into murder TV and true crime stories, docu series, documentaries. I'm like 84. What was it? 84% of the U.S. Podcasts are right up there. People have a fascination with the darker side of life, I guess. People have a fascination with anything that's controversial. So any kind of like murder or going against the law or anything that has a potential for high risk of danger, that gets a lot of attention. But that's one position where, or one area of life where technology to me is great. Because the technology from all this, from the technology that we have, is the reason that a lot of these guys get caught. Like I think it was a Joe Rogan podcast where he had a cop on that used to be dirty and spent time, I guess, in jail. But he was explaining that um, before cell phones and all that stuff, if you had no attachment to a person and murdered them or whatever, then you would have had an easier time to get away because there was no like find that guy on this camera on the corner. But now, or never get caught, I guess. Yeah, back then it was easier because if you went to like a different town, nobody knew you, you just grabbed some random person that you had no relation with, it'd be very difficult to be able to find you. But now people still operate like that, but like there's a camera on every corner. Like it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're getting caught, bro. That's how that's about to go, you know? But that's how they always find them is technology, is some form of technology because you can't get away from it. Dude, it's so tough. It's also terrifying that there's that much surveillance and like we cannot get away from it. That's how society is now. But it seems like it's fair that, most people want it. They just want it to stop at a certain point where it's not invasion, I guess, of privacy or whatever. I'm so high right now. I hope you're high. I hope you enjoyed the sesh. That's where I cut myself off. But those are my thoughts off the stem for this week. Hope you enjoyed the sesh. Thank you for sticking around. We'll see you next week, hopefully, on Thoughts Off the Stem. Don't forget to visit tots420.com. I got the giggles. I hope you have the giggles. Subscribe to whatever you're listening to if you're still listening. Share it with your friends that you think would like it. Whoa, I'm stoned. Yep. Yep, definitely stoned. Hope you're stoned. Anyway, that's all I have to say. So until next time, keep your lids low, baby.